The morning sun spilled across Cartagena's sun-bleached rooftops as I stepped onto our hotel balcony, espresso in hand. 5 days into our anniversary trip, and the Colombian coast had surpassed every brochure promise. Elena emerged from the bathroom, the hem of her linen dress catching the breeze as she joined me at the wrought iron railing. "Another perfect day," she murmured, though her eyes stayed locked on her phone. "Ready for the old fortress tour?" I asked, slipping an arm around her waist. She stiffened, so briefly I almost missed it, then melted against me. "Absolutely. Just clearing some work emails." Our guide, a leathery man in his late 50s with deep-set eyes and a knowing, asymmetrical smile, had been our steady companion since the airport pickup. He'd introduced himself simply as Don Mateo, the name everyone in the old city apparently used. His English carried the soft melody of Caribbean Spanish, and his knowledge of Colombia's layered history seemed inexhaustible. We met him in the lobby at 9 sharp. He greeted us with his customary warmth, but I noticed his gaze linger on Elena a beat longer than usual, the smile not quite reaching his eyes. The Castillo San Felipe de Barajas was magnificent. Tour groups snaked through its tunnels while Don Mateo explained the centuries of siege and survival, the clever drainage system, the angled walls designed to deflect cannon fire. Elena drifted from our group, phone pressed to her ear. I watched her pace along a parapet, her free hand carving emphatic shapes in the air. "Your wife. She is very occupied," Don Mateo observed quietly beside me. "She runs her own marketing consultancy," I explained. "Some clients don't respect vacation." He nodded slowly. "Of course. Business does not sleep." But something in his cadence made me glance at him sharply. He was watching Elena with an expression I couldn't read. Concern, maybe. Or suspicion. That afternoon we wandered through Getsemani, the once rough barrio now alive with restored facades and vivid street art. Elena suggested we split up to browse the artisan shops on our own. "We'll cover more ground," she said brightly. "Meet at that cafe in an hour." Before I could answer, Don Mateo cut in smoothly. "Actually, I recommend we stay together. These streets bend in unexpected ways, and some corners are not friendly to tourists alone." Elena's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "I think I can manage a few shops." "Please," Don Mateo said, firmer now. "It is my responsibility to see you home safely." She acquiesced with visible reluctance, and we continued as a trio through the cobblestone alleys. I was browsing a gallery of local paintings when, through the open window, I saw a man approach Elena in the jewelry shop next door. Tall, angular, hair slicked back, casual clothes expensive enough to announce a foreigner. They didn't touch, didn't even stand particularly close, but their body language spoke of familiarity. When I stepped in a minute later, the man was gone. "Find anything you like?" I asked. "Nothing special," she said, already moving toward the door. Don Mateo appeared at my elbow. "There's an excellent restaurant 1 block over. The ceviche is a small religion." Over lunch, Elena barely touched her corvina. Her phone buzzed steadily, and each glance at the screen brought a flicker of anxiety before she rearranged her features. Don Mateo kept up polite conversation about Colombian coffee and the politics of shade-grown cacao, but I noticed he was watching her too. Back at the hotel that evening, I found her on the balcony again, speaking quickly in hushed tones. I caught fragments. "Tomorrow at the market, has to be ready. No mistakes this time?" When she realized I was there, she ended the call abruptly. "Everything okay?" "Fine. Just work drama. You know how it is." She kissed my cheek and slid past me into the room. "I'm wiped. Let's call it an early night." Lying beside her in the dark, listening to her restless breathing, unease coiled slow and cold in my stomach. The phone calls, the stranger in the jewelry shop, her distracted silences. Individually, nothing. Stacked together, they formed a pattern I couldn't name, but couldn't ignore. Tomorrow we were scheduled for a river trip into the Montes de Maria foothills to visit a small Zenu community far from the tourist circuit. Don Mateo had promised it would be the highlight of our trip, a glimpse of Colombia most visitors never saw. I had no idea how right he would be, not for the reasons either of us expected. The motorized skiff cut through the coffee-colored water of the Magdalena tributary, dense mangroves pressing in from both banks. Don Mateo sat at the stern, one hand on the outboard, his weathered face unreadable as he steered around half-submerged logs. Elena sat ahead of me, wide-brimmed hat shading her face, phone clutched in her lap despite the lack of signal this far upriver. The Zenu settlement emerged from the greenery, a cluster of stilted houses with palm-thatched roofs, connected by plank walkways. Children splashed in the shallows while women in traditional dress tended cooking fires. An elder welcomed us with a brief blessing, and we were invited to watch the afternoon's work. Elena excused herself almost immediately. "Bathroom," she mouthed, though I noticed she headed not toward the facilities Don Mateo had indicated, but toward the far edge of the village, where a small dock extended into the river. I was about to follow when Don Mateo's hand settled on my shoulder, gentle, unmistakably firm. "Let her go," he said quietly. "Come, I will show you how they carve the tagua." For the next hour I learned to shape tagua nuts, vegetable ivory, into small animals, while one eye tracked the village paths. Elena reappeared eventually, her expression neutral, but a small, heavy bulge had appeared in the canvas bag on her shoulder that hadn't been there when she left. Lunch was fresh river fish wrapped in plantain leaves. Then another boat arrived. The same man from Gethsemane stepped onto the dock, now in cargo pants and a photographer's vest, a camera bag slung across his chest. He approached our group with practiced casualness and introduced himself as a travel journalist documenting indigenous communities. "Small world," he said, his English carrying a faint, unplaceable European accent. "Didn't I see you folks in the old city yesterday?" "What a coincidence," Elena said, too quickly. Don Mateo said nothing, but his eyes narrowed as he watched them. The journalist took photographs, spoke with the elder through a translator, and contrived to remain within a few steps of Elena throughout the afternoon. Once, I saw them exchange a quiet nod, the kind of silent communication that tightens a chest without permission. The return trip was quiet, storm clouds massed overhead, and the first drops of rain were falling as we reached the dock, where our rental car waited. Don Mateo helped us stow our bags, then drew me aside while Elena climbed into the passenger seat. "Tomorrow's your last day," he said, voice low and urgent. "The big market in the morning, then the airport in the afternoon?" "That's right. Our flight leaves at 5. He glanced at the car, where Elena was already absorbed in her phone. "Be very careful at the market. Keep your belongings close. Do not let anyone place anything in your bags without your knowledge." "I don't understand. Are you warning me about pickpockets?" His dark eyes held mine with uncomfortable intensity. "I am warning you about your wife." The words hung between us like the heavy air before a storm breaks. "What are you talking about?" "I've been a guide for 30 years. You learn to see things, to read people. Your wife, she is planning something. This man who keeps appearing, he is not a journalist. They are working together." Heat flared in my chest. "That's absurd. You're suggesting my wife?" "I am suggesting nothing. I am telling you what I have observed. The phone calls, always in private. The signals with this man. The way she separates from you at every opportunity. Tomorrow at the market, something will happen. They will try to place something in your luggage, I think. Something that will cause you very serious trouble at the airport. This is insane. Why would she—" "Money," he said simply. "It is always money. Perhaps insurance. Perhaps debts you do not know of. Perhaps this man has sold her a story about a new beginning. I do not know the why. I know the what, and the what is dangerous for you." The rain came harder now. Elena tapped the windshield, gesturing impatiently. Don Mateo reached into his pocket and pressed a card into my hand. "My nephew works in airport security. If you need help tomorrow, call this number. Tell him I sent you." "You're wrong about this," I said. My voice lacked conviction. "I hope I am. But if I am right, and you are in a holding room being questioned about narcotics, you will wish you had listened." He stepped back and raised his voice to normal volume. "Thank you for allowing me to show you my beautiful country. Safe travels tomorrow." I drove back to the hotel in silence, my mind churning. Elena hummed along to the radio, looking more relaxed than she had in days. Was Don Mateo reading sinister meanings into innocent coincidences? Or was I the blind one, the husband who refused to see a betrayal unfolding inches from his face? That night, while Elena showered, I searched her belongings. I felt like a thief, but fear had long since outgunned guilt. In the inner pocket of her carry-on, I found a padded envelope containing small carved figurines, the kind sold at every tourist market on the coast. Unremarkable, except for their weight. They were far too heavy for wood. The shower shut off. I put everything back and retreated to the balcony, heart hammering. When she emerged in her robe, toweling her hair, she seemed lighter, as if something heavy had been set down. Big day tomorrow, she said cheerfully. One last adventure before we head home. Can't wait, I said, and the lie was bitter on my tongue. Mercado de Basurto erupted into life at dawn. Fishermen hauling that morning's catch onto ice-packed tables, vendors stacking pyramids of guava and granadilla, tourists bargaining over hand-woven mochilas. The smells of fried arepa, roasted coffee, and salt air tangled in the humid heat. Elena was electric, tugging me from stall to stall with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen since we arrived. We should bring something back for everyone, she announced, fingering a display of colorful woven bags. Your sister would love one of these. I watched her carefully for tells. She looked genuinely engaged, laughing with vendors, comparing prices, holding textiles up to the light. Maybe Don Mateo had been wrong. Maybe paranoia and too many spy thrillers had bent his reading of things. Then I saw him, the so-called journalist, browsing a stall 3 rows over. He wasn't taking pictures. He was watching us. I need to find a bathroom, Elena said suddenly. The vendor told me there are facilities at the back of the market. 1 minute. I'll come with you. Don't be ridiculous. Stay with our bags. I'll be right back. She was already moving, weaving through the crowd with fluent ease. I stood guard over our shopping bags and her large purse, which she'd left on a wooden bench. The journalist had vanished. Sweat tracked down my spine. Heat. Anxiety. I couldn't tell. 5 minutes. 10. A boy approached, maybe 12, carrying a shoebox wrapped in newspaper. Perdón, senor. The lady say to give you this. She comes soon, buying something special for you. She say put in the big bag, for surprise. He pointed to Elena's purse and was already edging backward into the crowd. Every instinct howled. This was it, the moment Don Mateo had described. Wait, I called, but the boy was gone. I looked down at the package. Heavier than it had any right to be. My fingers trembled as I peeled back a corner of the newspaper. Inside were carved figurines, identical to the ones I'd found in Elena's suitcase, along with several small bundles wrapped in plastic and packing tape. I didn't need to be a customs officer to know what I was holding. Don't open that here. I spun around. Don Mateo stood behind me, as if he'd materialized from the crowd. He wore plain clothes instead of his usual tour company polo, and his expression was grim. What are you doing here? Making sure you do not make a terrible mistake. Were you really about to put that in your wife's bag? No. Maybe. I don't know. The package felt radioactive in my hands. What is this? Cocaine, most likely. Possibly something worse. Enough to buy you many years in a Colombian prison and dismantle your life entirely. He took the package carefully and rewrapped it. The boy, he said your wife told him to give this to you? I nodded. Nausea climbed my throat. She has been clever. The security cameras show you accepting the package. Your fingerprints are on it now. If you had placed it in her bag as instructed, she claims innocence. You must have done it without her knowledge. At the airport she discovers it, perhaps pretending to think it is a gift, and alerts security. She is the concerned citizen. You are the trafficker. But why? We've been married 8 years. We have a good life. Good jobs. The man she has been meeting. They have been planning this for months, I believe. I made some calls yesterday. He is known to the authorities in several countries, though never convicted. He recruits people, usually women, to set up their partners. Money is always promised. Insurance payouts, business opportunities, or simply payment for services rendered. The market spun around me. A vendor shouted prices. Children laughed. Ordinary life proceeded while mine fractured. Where is she now? Watching from a distance. Waiting to see if you take the bait. When you do, she will return and behave as if nothing has happened. At the airport, the plan unfolds. I need to confront her. I need to understand. No. His grip on my arm was iron. If you confront her, you reveal what you know. She and her partner disappear, regroup, try again differently, perhaps with another husband, or worse, they accuse you first. They file reports about a paranoid, controlling spouse. They make their story the official one. You must be smarter. Then what do? He drew out his phone and made a rapid call in Spanish. When he turned back to me, his voice was steady. My nephew and his colleagues are waiting at the airport. We have been building a case. Your wife's partner is wanted for questioning in 3 other countries. This time we have everything. Surveillance photographs, Documented meetings, traced communications. But we need her to carry the plan through, to incriminate herself fully. You want me to play along? Let her think it's working. Until you reach airport security, yes. Then she will discover that the trap she built has closed on her. He held up the package. This goes to the police now, as evidence. But you must act normally. Can you do this? Could I? Sit beside her in the car, knowing she had planned to destroy me. Make small talk. Smile while my heart turned to stone. What choice did I have? You could walk away now, he added. Leave Colombia alone. But she would do this to someone else, and the next man might not have a guide. Elena surfaced from the crowd carrying a small bag and a bright smile. Sorry that took forever. The line was ridiculous. Find anything good? I forced my face into a neutral expression and called on acting skills I hadn't known I possessed. Just browsing. Ready to head back to the hotel? One more lap. I want to find something really special to remember this trip. Don Mateo melted back into the market. Elena slipped her arm through mine, chattering about souvenirs and packing strategies. She seemed genuinely happy. Utterly convincing. If I hadn't seen the evidence, I would never have suspected. As we walked, I wondered which was worse, the betrayal itself, or the performance of love being played out beside me. Every laugh, every touch, every affectionate glance was a lie, a manipulation, a bolt being quietly drawn across a door I was walking through. Except now I knew. And knowledge, however brutal, was a kind of leverage. The hotel room felt like a stage set. Too bright, too ordinary. Every detail exactly right, except for the fundamental truth that nothing about it was real. Elena hummed while she packed, folding clothes with meticulous care, sorting toiletries into transparent bags for security. Don't forget your charger, she reminded me, pointing at the nightstand. And let's grab snacks for the plane. You get cranky on long flights. The casual domesticity of it, 8 years of shared rituals and small kindnesses, made the betrayal cut deeper. How long had she been planning this? Had there ever been a real version of us? Or had I been a mark from the moment she said yes? I'll miss Colombia, I said, testing the water. It was an amazing trip, wasn't it? We should travel more. Maybe Portugal next. I've always wanted to see Lisbon. Would we have made it to Lisbon? Or would I have been languishing in a cell in Cartagena while she collected whatever blood money had been promised? I swallowed the rage and produced a smile. Sounds perfect. The drive to Rafael Núñez International Airport took 40 minutes through afternoon traffic. Elena drove, leaving me free to watch the city slide past. The colonial wall, the walled city giving way to concrete apartment blocks. Then the terminal approach. She seemed relaxed, singing along to the radio, occasionally reaching over to squeeze my hand. Thank you for this trip, she said as we pulled into the rental return. Work has been insane for both of us. It was good to reconnect. The sincerity in her voice was extraordinary. If I hadn't known better, I would have melted. Instead, I committed every word to memory, evidence of how completely she had fooled me. Inside the terminal, the choreography began. We checked our bags at the counter. Elena made sure the clerk tagged everything correctly, told him she hoped our luggage would arrive safely. She suggested coffee before security, then conveniently remembered her water bottle in the rental car. I'll run back. Meet you at the cafe. This was the moment. The package would materialize in our checked luggage somehow. Don Mateo had explained the most common method. An accomplice posing as ground crew, placing the package into bags after check-in but before loading, where the cameras had the worst coverage. I'll come with you, I said. Don't be silly. It's a long walk and we still need to get through security. Just order me a cappuccino. I insist. I took her arm, gently but firmly. Frustration flickered across her face before the mask slid back into place. Fine. If you're going to be romantic about it. We walked back to the rental return together, retrieved the water bottle she had deliberately left behind, and returned to the terminal. I saw her eyes scanning the crowd, searching for someone. The journalist, perhaps. Or another accomplice, waiting to confirm the package was in place. At the cafe, she excused herself to the restroom. I watched her pull out her phone as she walked, thumbs moving fast. When she returned, she was trying and failing to hide her agitation. Everything okay? Fine. Some work crisis. Nothing that can't wait. Her coffee sat untouched. She kept checking her phone, heel tapping against the tile floor. Security screening went without incident. We drifted through the concourse toward our gate, browsing duty-free, discussing whether to get liquor for my brother. Elena's anxiety was becoming visible. Shorter answers, scattered glances, fingers drumming on every available surface. At the gate, boarding began. We were in Zone 3, which meant watching the first passengers line up while we waited in the cramped seating area. Elena excused herself again and disappeared toward the restrooms. Through the windows, I could see our aircraft being serviced, fuel trucks, catering carts, a line of baggage trolleys beneath the cargo hold. She returned just as our zone was called, slightly breathless. Ready? We joined the line, boarding passes in hand. The gate agent scanned our documents with professional ease. We were 3 people from the jet bridge when I heard it, a sharp voice calling out. Disculpe, senor. Please step aside. 2 airport security officers approached, flanking a man in a dark suit who introduced himself as a customs supervisor. Behind them, in plain clothes with an official badge on a lanyard, stood Don Mateo. We need you both to come with us, please, the supervisor said. There is an irregularity with your checked luggage. Elena's face went pale, then flushed. What kind of irregularity? This way, please. They escorted us to a small office near the security checkpoint. Phones confiscated, our bags retrieved from the plane. The supervisor opened our luggage on a metal examination table. Nested among Elena's carefully folded clothes were 3 of the carved figurines I had seen before. These are yours? The supervisor asked her. I bought them at a market. Souvenirs. He picked one up and examined it closely. Then he did something unexpected. He flicked open a hidden compartment in the base. White powder filled a small cavity. Except these have been modified. Approximately 50 grams of cocaine per unit. Combined with the 2 units found in your husband's suitcase, you are looking at a serious trafficking charge. That's impossible. Elena's performance was Oscar-worthy. Shock, horror, betrayal rippling across her face in perfect sequence. I don't know how that got there. Someone must have... She turned to me, eyes wide with accusation. Did you buy these? What have you done? Me? I kept my voice even, following Don Mateo's instructions. You're the one who's been making secret phone calls all week, meeting that journalist who kept showing up wherever we went. What journalist? You're being paranoid. The supervisor raised a hand. Before this continues, there is something you both should see. He produced a tablet and pressed play. Security footage from the baggage handling area showed a worker, the man who had been shadowing us all week, now in airline ground crew uniform, opening our checked bags and inserting the carved frames. Timestamp, 45 minutes ago. That's your partner, I said to Elena. The man from the old city. From the river. Her face broke. The mask finally cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. We've been investigating this smuggling ring for 6 months, the supervisor said. Your partner is already in custody. We apprehended him attempting to leave the baggage area. He is currently providing testimony in exchange for consideration of charges. This is insane. I'm being set up. Don Mateo stepped forward, his expression sympathetic but unyielding. Senora, we have phone records, bank transfers, hotel security footage of you meeting with this man 3 months ago when you told your husband you were at a conference in Miami. Text messages. We have everything. The fight drained out of her. She slumped in the plastic chair, her face in her hands. I needed the money, she whispered. The business was failing. I had debts he didn't know about. And he promised... He said it would be just this once. I felt nothing but a cold, spreading numbness. And I was supposed to take the fall. She looked up. For the first time, I saw something genuine in her eyes. Grief, maybe, or shame. You would have been fine eventually. They have programs, lawyers. I would have made sure you had a good attorney. How generous. Sir, the supervisor said gently, you are free to go. We have what we need from you. Your luggage will be cleared. You can catch the next available flight. And her? She will be processed and held pending trial. Given the evidence and her partner's cooperation, I expect a significant sentence. Elena, my ex-wife, I supposed, though the paperwork would take time, was led away. She did not look back. Don Mateo walked me to a quiet corner of the terminal, where we sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs surrounded by the ordinary bustle of travelers going to ordinary destinations. Thank you, I said finally. If you hadn't warned me, I'd be in her place. and she'd be on a plane to some new life with money in her pocket. He shook his head. I'm sorry you had to learn this truth about someone you loved. Were there signs I missed? Should I have known? Love makes us blind to what we do not want to see. This is not your failure. He stood and extended his hand. Your flight leaves in 2 hours. Go home. Begin again. Colombia will welcome you back when you are ready, under better circumstances. I watched him disappear into the terminal crowd, this man who had saved my life for no reason beyond the fact that it was right. Then I sat alone, surrounded by strangers, and finally let myself feel the full weight of what I had lost and what I had been spared. The departure lounge was 3/4 empty when I settled into a seat by the window. My replacement flight wasn't for another 90 minutes, which gave me too much time to think. Outside, planes taxied and lifted off, each carrying passengers toward reunions and vacations and business deals. Ordinary trajectories for ordinary lives? Mine felt like neither. My phone, returned by security, buzzed steadily. Missed calls from my brother. Messages from friends asking how the trip was going. A cheerful reminder from our bank about the rewards balance on our joint credit card. The infrastructure of a shared life, already obsolete. I should call someone. My brother, maybe. My oldest friend. But what would I say? Hey, remember Elena? She tried to frame me for international drug trafficking. How's your week? Some truths are too strange to fit into a casual conversation. Instead, I opened the photo gallery. There we were, laughing at the Castillo, framed against a Gethsemane sunset, posing with Zenu children. Elena's smile was brilliant in every frame, her arm around me possessive and affectionate. Had any of it been real? Or had she been acting from the moment she said yes, seeing not a partner but a patsy, disposable enough to spend on whatever escape she had invented for herself? Excuse me. A woman in airline uniform stood beside me, professionally apologetic. We have you listed for a complimentary upgrade to business class as compensation for your delay. Would you like to board early? That's kind of you. Yes, thank you. She walked me through the priority lane, and I sank into a leather seat that reclined nearly flat, with noise-canceling headphones and a pre-departure drink. The flight attendant brought champagne without asking. I stared at the golden thread of bubbles rising through the flute and thought about celebration and its opposites, and a man settled into the seat beside me. Late 60s, expensive watch, the unself-conscious ease of someone used to business class. He nodded politely, then did what any reasonable person does on a long flight. Put in his earbuds. Except, I found myself wanting to talk. Needing to. Maybe. Do you believe people can change? I asked abruptly. Or are we, who we've always been, just better at hiding it? He looked startled, then thoughtful. That's a serious question for a Tuesday afternoon. Bad trip? You could say that. He considered this. I think we're always becoming. Some people become better versions of themselves, braver, kinder, more honest. Others become worse, making choices that shrink them into something smaller and more afraid. The becoming doesn't stop until we do. And if someone you loved became someone you didn't recognize, then you grieve what you thought you had, and you keep becoming too. Towards something better if you're lucky. He extended a hand. I'm Arthur. Divorce attorney in Savannah, 35 years. You develop a philosophy after enough stories. I shook his hand and laughed, despite everything. That is either terrible luck or perfect timing. Usually both, in my experience. The plane pushed back from the gate, and I watched Cartagena recede beneath us. The walled city, the harbor, the distant green shoulders of the Montes de Maria. Somewhere down there, Elena sat in a holding cell facing consequences she had never imagined would apply to her. Don Mateo was probably back to leading tours, keeping his eyes open for other travelers in peril. The journalist-turned-smuggler was cutting deals, trading information for leniency. All these lives intersecting and diverging like flight paths, briefly sharing the same sky before continuing towards separate destinations. Can I ask you something? Arthur said as we reached cruising altitude. What made you start questioning? Most people don't want to see betrayal, even when it's obvious. Our guide warned me. A stranger. No reason to care about my problems, except that he noticed something wrong. I thought about those moments. The careful warnings, the surveillance footage, the intervention arriving with exactly the right timing. He could have minded his own business. Probably should have. He didn't. Good people still exist, Arthur said. Easy to forget when you're focused on the bad ones. The flight attendant brought lunch, some kind of chicken I barely tasted. Arthur talked about his daughter, a marine biologist studying coral in the Caribbean. I talked about my job, my brother, the house I had bought 3 years ago that now felt contaminated by lies. We didn't discuss my situation directly, but the conversation itself was therapeutic. Proof that ordinary human connections still existed, that not everyone was performing a con. Somewhere over the Gulf, exhaustion finally caught up. I reclined the seat, closed my eyes, and for the first time in days, I slept without anxiety. No cells, no courtrooms, just darkness and rest. I woke to the captain announcing our descent. Through the window, the American coastline was resolving from abstract shapes into familiar geography. Beaches, highways, suburban sprawl. Home, whatever that meant now. Arthur was reading a paperback, but glanced over as I stirred. A lot ahead of you. Divorce proceedings, probably depositions for the criminal case, untangling the finances. It'll be ugly and exhausting. I know, but here's what I tell all my clients. This isn't the end of your story. It's the chapter where you learn something crucial. About trust, about awareness, about yourself. The next chapter is yours to write. The wheels touched down with a soft jolt. Passengers around us reached for overhead bags and powered on phones, already mentally at their next destination. I stayed still a moment longer, letting it settle. I was home. I was safe. I was free. And I was profoundly, unutterably alone. But alone wasn't the same as defeated. Alone meant unencumbered. Alone meant I could rebuild without worrying about hidden agendas or private schemes. Alone meant the only person I had to trust was myself. Arthur handed me his card as we deplaned. If you need a referral to someone in your state, call me. And if you're ever in Savannah, the first drink is on me. Thank you for everything. Take care of yourself. The world is still full of people worth trusting. Don't let one liar convince you otherwise. I rode the airport tram to baggage claim, collected my suitcase, now cleared of incriminating cargo, and stepped out into humid evening air. My brother had texted that he would pick me up. I spotted his car idling at the curb. Welcome home. He hugged me hard, then held me at arm's length, studying my face. Jesus, you look like hell. Was Colombia that exhausting? You have no idea. Come on, pizza and beer at my place. You can tell me about it. As we drove through familiar streets toward his apartment, I thought about what I would tell him, and what I would keep to myself. Some wounds need air to heal. Others need time, quiet, and the slow work of understanding. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Safe travels. Remember, the door is always open when you're ready to see Colombia properly. Don Mateo. I smiled, despite everything, and typed back. Thank you. You literally saved my life. 3 dots appeared then. You saved yourself by being willing to see the truth. I only held up the mirror. The city lights blurred past the window, familiar, ordinary, reassuring in their predictability. Tomorrow I would begin the process of dismantling a shared life. Lawyers, bank accounts, the house we had bought together. Tomorrow I would tell my family the full story and endure their shock and sympathy and rage on my behalf. Tomorrow I would begin becoming again. But tonight I would sit with my brother, eat pizza, and remember that not everyone lies. Not everyone betrays. Some people warn you about dangers you cannot see. Some people offer unexpected wisdom at 30,000 feet. Some people pick you up from the airport without asking complicated questions. The world was still full of genuine kindness, honest affection, and trustworthy love. I had simply been looking in the wrong place. As we pulled into my brother's parking lot, I took one last look at my phone. At the photos from Colombia, the messages from a wife pretending our marriage was real, the warnings I had almost ignored. Then I deleted them all. Not to forget. I would never forget, but to stop giving them power over what came next. Because the next chapter was mine to write, and this time, I would be a hell of a lot more careful about who held the pen.